Hey friends. So last week we talked about side gigs. Today we're going to talk about a little bit of an interesting take on that and why you might need a side gig or might need more than that. So I was at it was a conference this weekend, like a one day kind of event. And so this is all women business owners who come together to grow their business, to share ideas, to work on mindset, all that kind of stuff, right? And it was interesting because one of the speakers was talking about mentoring women who all right, let's just I don't know how to say this without like becoming like super depressing, but let's talk about this. The average age for a woman in the United States to become a widow is 59 years old. So I actually pulled up some stats. Okay. So this was crazy because I was like, wow, I'm thinking that's like 10 years from here, like 10 years from now is the average age that a woman becomes a widow. There are 2,800, so 2,800 new widows every single day. And there are about a third of the women are younger than 60. About 73,000 widows every year are between 35 and 54 years old. Oh my gosh. But here's what was really kind of scary and shocking about this stat. Household income for women often drops by nearly 40% after the death of a spouse. And so the question was presented that if you found yourself single tomorrow, could you maintain your standard of living and your circle of friends with that change? Because one of the things they were talking about is if you have a circle of friends where you guys go out to eat and you vacation together and you golf together and you play tennis together and you do all these things, and then all of a sudden 40% of your income is gone and you can't do those things anymore, then now not only have you lost your standard of living, you've lost your spouse, but now you've lost your circle of friends too, simply by economics, right? And it was a very unsettling question because I know so many women who would say, no, I would not be able to maintain my standard of living. And it's interesting. So I grew up in a family where my father worked and my mother stayed home. And it really shaped how I saw finances. I think we all have this, right? Like you can tell me in the chat, like how did your childhood shape how you view like men, women, money, roles, all those things, right? So I had two significant events that happened in my life that changed how I saw what I wanted when I was older, but also how I grew up. So I grew up where my father worked, my mother stayed home, but it was a kind of dynamic where my father basically controlled all of the money. And so there was a lot of arguing over money. There was a lot of turmoil over money. And it was the idea that it was his money and it was what he allowed my mother to have, right? Like I think back now about some of the things, sometimes when we grow up, we think things are normal. And how many of you guys can relate to this? Like there were things that happened in my childhood that I didn't know I thought were normal. And now as an adult, I'm like, that was so messed up. So for example, like I remember as a kid, my mom would say to me, go to the mailbox, go get the credit card bill and let's hide it. She would get the credit card bill and she would hide it until there was a good time that she could tell my dad and give him the credit card bill that he wouldn't explode into a rage about the money. And I realized as I became an adult, particularly as I started to own a business, how much of like the money issues that they had in their generation impacted who I became and how I handled money and all of that. And maybe for those of you who are Gen Xers, if you had parents, my parents were raised, my dad particularly, by parents who went through the Great Depression, right? And so you had a generation who went through the Great Depression. This impacted and they were traumatized about money, right? Then they raise the next generation and then those people raise us, right? And so this money trauma gets passed down. And so that was significant for me. I grew up knowing that I always wanted my own money. I didn't want to have to ask a man, my husband, for money. I didn't want to be controlled by money. That was very significant in me always wanting to be a working mom, right? And then two significant things happened in high school. One was I had a friend whose father died driving home, fell asleep at the wheel of the car, was killed. It was horrible. It was traumatic. My heart still hurts for his family. But I saw the impact of that, of going from, this family that had this, dependent on him for this income, and how life could change instantly, even in a perfect family with people who loved each other, and it was a devastating loss. The second thing that happened was I was temping in college, and I had a temp job over the summer, and it was in this office. And I remember I sat at this desk and in this building, and this woman sat in the desk kind of like across from me. And every day at 3 o'clock, her 7-year-old would call to say that he got home from school. And back then there were no cell phones or anything, right? And so he would call and he would let his mom get home. And I would remember I would listen to that every day, that she'd say, "Okay, you're home, and I'll be home in a few hours, and make sure you're okay." And he was 7 years old. And so I had these significant events, and also the experience that I grew up in. I went, okay, so I always want to have my own money. I always want to not be dependent on somebody else. And I always want to make sure that I have that, but I also don't want that. I don't want my 7-year-old calling me and telling me that, they're getting home from school. And I'll tell you, it was one of the things that drove me when I got into direct sales at 20 years old. Was one of the things that later on really drove me to build that business. When I was getting married and I was thinking of my future, and I was like, okay, if I build a business that I can have from home, I can be a work from home mom and not be a stay-at-home mom, right? Like, I'm not staying at home full time. And let me tell you, stay-at-home moms, that's a whole other job. Like, if you've got multiple kids and you're home full time, that is a whole job in of itself. If you've ever read those studies of, like, if you add up all the work they do, how much that would cost. But I wanted something where I was going to be working at home, that I could have my own money, right? And so, and it was a very good thing that I had that, because years later, when I went through my domestic violence and got divorced, I had bought the house was in my name. I was the one who was on the mortgage. Like, I was able to, stay in that house and everything, and had more choices, let's say, than other women who didn't have that. And I'm very grateful for that. But at this conference this weekend, when we were talking about the average age of widowhood, it made me realize how much, this is one of the reasons I love working with women. This is one of the reasons I love helping women build businesses, another stream of income, because life can change on a dime. And unfortunately, I've had that happen many times throughout my life. At one point, may not even know this, I was diagnosed with what's called situational adjustment disorder, because I had so many life changes happen so quickly that my brain actually couldn't even keep up with how different life was overnight. And it's something that still impacts me today. The idea that life could change like that, right? And something I've had to work through. And with that, though, is that I'm always planning. And some people say, "Oh my gosh, that's so morbid." Like, I'm always like, is your will in place? Is the life insurance in place? Like, how's the house? Like, I have no problem having those conversations, because I know life can change so quickly. And a lot of people are very uncomfortable with this conversation. Why are you talking about a will? Why are you talking about life insurance? Why are you talking about death? Right? Because life can change. And the average age to be a widow is 59 years old. And so some of the conversations that we had was, number one, she was saying that she had a friend who, the husband had all the money and they were very wealthy and everything was fine. He drops dead, and she finds out that the life insurance premiums had lapsed. So the life insurance that she thought she had was gone, because there was a lapse in those payments. How many women are like, "I don't know, my husband takes care of the bills. I don't know, my husband takes care of the life insurance. I don't know, my husband takes care of the investments." And they really don't know what's going on in their financial situation. There's a book. Let me see if I have it. I might have given it to somebody. I always give my books away. I don't know if I have it here. I think I gave it to somebody. It's called Smart Women. Oh gosh, I don't think I have it. I do not see it here. I probably gave it to somebody. It is called, I need to get it. It's a great book. It's called Smart Women Finish Rich. Great book. If you are a woman, you need to read this book. And it talks about things, even like basic money principles. We were taught, save 10% of your income. But for women, that's terrible financial advice, because women outlive men. So women need to actually be saving 12% of their income. And he gets into the fact that most of the financial advice that we are given is based on men and their lifeline, and not women. He also talks about, and this was a big eye opener for me. He said, when men make poor financial decisions, their poor financial decisions die with them. Like because they die earlier. So if they die and they're in debt, if they die and their business is messed up, if they die and they don't have good savings for long term, right? They don't have to suffer the consequences of their decisions, but the women who are left do. They have to carry on the consequences of those financial decisions. And I have personally witnessed this with my friends. And so, what does this mean for us as women? This means that number one, we need to know what's going on with our family income. We need to know where the money's going. We need to know what's set up. We need to know what's being spent. I can't tell you how many women are like, I don't know. It's 2026, guys. I still talk to women who they don't know. My husband takes care of that. It's like there was that guy who was, oh gosh, what was he? I don't know if he was a basketball player or a football player. He was a famous athlete and was making millions and millions of dollars. This was just like a couple of years ago on the news. Comment if you know who I'm talking about. He was a famous athlete, making all these millions of dollars, is married to this woman. Who knows why she files for divorce. Who knows what's going on in the marriage? She files for divorce, but she's thinking, well, I'm going to be okay because we've been married and he has all this money. Turns out he had put all of the money that he ever made in his mother's name. None of it was in his. There was no money. I don't know what ended up happening in the court case. If you do, you could tell me in the comments. I don't know how. I should go look. I don't know how that all shaked out and that went panned out at the end. But basically, he had hidden all of his money. It was all in his mother's name. None of it was in his name. When I got divorced, I found a bank account that I didn't know about. Now, in my case, there was no money in that bank account. In my case, what was happening is, and I don't share this part of my life very much, but in my case, my ex-husband he was in and out of jobs. He could not hold a job. He had some kind of dead end job he was doing, but he would say, well, after taxes, I don't really make any money. And, all the money goes to the insurance, the health insurance. And at that season, it was towards the end of our marriage, his part-time job, whatever he was doing, was covering our health insurance. And so he would say to me, I don't really get any money. Like at the end of the time, by the time they take the taxes, the time they take the health insurance, there's nothing left. And I would think, well, okay, maybe that's true, right? Like I didn't know. I wasn't looking at the checks. I wasn't, again, I wasn't involved in any of that. I just trusted that if that's what he said, that's what he said. Well, we get divorced. I find this bank account and there was not a lot of money in there, but there was money going in there every week. But all of the money was being spent on alcohol and cigarettes. Like every day. I actually found in my backyard a shed that was filled with folded boxes of alcohol that he would buy the alcohol, drink the alcohol behind my back, and then hide it, not even throw it in the garbage so I wouldn't know it was there. I mean, crazy stuff, right? Crazy. But I found out like, oh, he actually was getting some money. It was just all going to his addictions, right? And I'm somebody who kind of like praises myself on that. I wasn't somebody who didn't know what was going on financially, did not even know this bank account existed. So I say this because as women, we need to take responsibility because we're not just responsible for us, but we're also responsible for our children. And we need to take responsibility. And that also means, and if you go back and you watch my video from last week, more than 50% of Americans have side gigs. You may need another stream of income and not even know yet that you need another stream of income. What are you doing to set yourself up financially? I remember growing up in this business. I was in the direct sales business. It was all women. They all were building these very successful businesses. And I would hear over and over again, a man is not a plan. A man is not a plan. If that is your plan, that is not a plan, right? Isn't it Mel Robbins? She's famous for saying like, no one is coming to save you. You need to save yourself, right? So this is why having another stream of income can be a really big deal. This is why I help women build other streams of income, particularly ones that they can work around their family, because most people don't have the luxury of just stopping what they're doing and going all in a business or going all in another career. Most women they cannot just kind of like get out of the boat, and be like, I'm going to go do something different. Most people need to figure out, how can I build some financial security, some wealth in and around what I'm already doing in pockets of time, in 30 minutes here and 15 minutes here and 10 minutes here. I'm actually doing a training today for our Hey Girl You Can community on this very concept. in about actually in a little bit, on this very concept of how do you build in pockets of time? How do you build when life is falling apart, when the distractions are happening, when your plan that you had that was going to happen today doesn't work out because you got a phone call from school and the kid was sick and the dog threw up and your husband's getting home late and everything kind of goes to hell in a handbasket. How do you still function, build a business and make income and move the needle and go forward, right? And with all of that, I do think that a big part of it is our mindset of how we see ourselves and what we believe about ourselves. So I've got a couple of things for you. Number one, I would love your feedback on this. Tell me what you think. What are your thoughts? Like when you hear these stats, and does it make some of us, hopefully some of us go, oh, I need to get my finances in order. I need to go sit down with my husband and know exactly what's going on. I need to look, where's our life insurance? Whose name is in the house? Particularly now because we have a lot of people who live together who are not married, right? Like we need to take extra precautions in those cases. So what is that situation? How are you protected? Do you know what's going on? Do you have access to those bank accounts? Is your name on those accounts? Do you have access to the logins and the passcodes? Like, is there a will in place? I'm shocked how many people don't have a will, right? So all of those types of things. Like, are you safe? Are your children safe? Important conversations to be having. So a couple things I have for you. Number one, go to my links. There's a few things here for you. If you are building a business, but you are struggling to actually create income with that business, and you are struggling to maintain income in that business, then you need to come work with me within Hey Girl You Can, because you will have access to our CEO Clarity Method. The feedback I am getting on this is phenomenal for women. This has become the game changer for them in their business, in learning how to actually structure and work and scale their business to create consistent, dependable income. So you can find out more about the Hey Girl You Can community here, but that's what you need access to. If you do not have a business and you're looking at doing something on the side, and you're like, I would love to make a stream of income. I don't have a lot of time. I already have so much going on. I can't go necessarily get another career or another job, but I need a way to make money. Send me a DM. I will send you info on my business, what I do, how it works, and how I do all of that from my laptop and my phone. Okay. And how I did that in pockets of time, because when I started my business, it was my third part-time job. And I did not go all in. I went in a little, and I built. And so we can have a conversation. I'll share with you some information. And if my business isn't the right one for you, at least you'll get the right questions to ask to find the right one for you. Okay. And then finally, and the thing that I'm most excited about is the very first link on here is a wait list. My friend, Corey, who has literally changed my life. When I tell you this woman has changed my life, she works with people on helping shift who they are being right now into who they are really meant to be. She talks about activating your life, taking that step from here to here in a huge way that you finally step into your power, your ownership, and who you are. And she has a book that is coming out, and I cannot wait to get my hands on this book, because let me tell you, every single time I work with her, and I've known her now since my daughter was 2, so about 18 years, almost 2 decades. Every single time I have worked with this woman, magic has happened in my life. Shifts, abundance, life-changing. I will tell you in full transparency, she saved my daughter's life. That is another story for another day that we don't have time for today. But when I tell you that this woman was, I believe God put her in my life, because every time I have worked with her, massive shifts have happened. So to get access to her book is huge. Now, I'm very fortunate that she is a friend of mine, and so I've been able to work with her. But for most people, to be able to work with her is thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So to be able to get access to what she teaches in the form of a book is huge. So you need to go in here, go get on the wait list. Okay, get on that wait list and get that book. She's going to have a live event where if you buy the book, you're going to be able to get into her space, into the book, because some of us need to activate our lives to change our lives so that we are not stuck at 59 years old if we become a widow where we don't know what's going on. So we are not stuck in this, I don't have ownership of my life and I'm not living my best life. Like most of us need to make a shift, and she's going to help you do that. So I've got a number of things for you, and you can watch this every week, and that's great. And hopefully you take an idea, but guys, really the change is going to happen when we work together. Whether you get into my community with Hey Girl You Can, whether you start your business with me and we start working where I become your business mentor, whether you get connected with Corey and her book, but our events, like go to our events. We've got a bunch of events coming up. There's only so much you're going to get from social media. It's when we get in each other's space that we can start to make real change in your life. So I'd love your thoughts. I'd love to know what you think. I know I went a little bit longer today. I'll be back on Friday. Let's talk on Friday. And I'm going to go work with our Hey Girl You Can community now. So I hope you have an amazing, amazing day. Take ownership of your life and don't be a stat. Don't be the stat, be the exception. Bye, guys.